Throughout history, society has been fascinated by the idea of justice. Frankly, we need it to function correctly at all. Whether real or not, the perspective keeps the masses calm. We build our lives around the principles of right and wrong, law and order, but we build imperfect systems. We build human systems. Bad actors, mistakes, and just downright bad luck has allowed people to slip through the cracks. How do some of these people get away with it? Financial crimes, the realm of high-stakes money maneuvers, greed, complex schemes, crimes that are often shrouded in ambiguity. Where do we draw the line between right and wrong? Frankly, no theft in modern history is quite as shrouded in mystery, ambiguity, and lore as this one. On a cold November day in 1971, a man walks into the Portland International Airport and purchases a one-way ticket to Seattle. In his mind, there's no going back. He boards the plane and he has nothing but a suitcase, orders a bourbon, sits down and relaxes until a plane takes off. But shortly after 3 p.m., things are gonna get a little spicy. He hands a note to the stewardess, revealing that he has a bomb in his briefcase. But it's not just talk from him. He needs to convince her that he actually has a bomb. He opens the case briefly to show a plethora of wires and red sticks. He then instructs her to relay his demands. 4 parachutes and $200,000 in $20 bills. What happens next can only be described as spectacular, almost movie-esque. Probably nothing like it has been done before. When the flight lands in Seattle, they sit on the tarmac and wait. They wait for a very tense handoff. He exchanges the 36 passengers for the money and the parachutes, but keeps the crew. In truth, he needs them. He doesn't plan on sitting on that tarmac all day. He then instructs them to fire up the plane and take off again. He tells them to direct the plane to Mexico City. And then at 8 p.m., somewhere in between Seattle and Reno, he opens the rear of the plane and jumps out with the parachute and the money. Despite many eyewitnesses, many detailed descriptions of the man, and an extensive FBI investigation, he vanished into the night, leaving behind only a black tie, never to be seen again. This man, who only referred to himself as Dan Cooper, or D.B. Cooper, in later years became a modern-day Robin Hood, a folk hero, someone who outwitted the authorities and vanished without a trace. Now, public perception was on his side, even though he broke the law, even though he stole, even though he threatened people with a bomb. He was just too cool. People fantasized about being this man, getting away with it, jumping out of the plane, escaping with the money. Like I said, it was like a movie. He was a movie star. In fact, perception matters a lot when it comes to getting away with it. The court of public opinion and their gavel decide your fate more than you think. In 2008, there began a chain reaction, a series of events each caused by the previous one. This crisis was triggered by the collapse of the subprime mortgage market in the United States. Now, I don't want to get too much into the nuance of things, but essentially, financial institutions were selling more and more risky mortgage-backed securities.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works.
It had taken a hold of banks across the country. The values of these securities plummeted, and just like a series of dominoes, it rippled across the financial sector. Someone has to pay for their negligence, right? Because frankly, they were all negligent. And some did fall. The first to fall was the Lehman Brothers. But next up should have been a series of major downfalls for major financial players. But that didn't happen. Institutions like JP Morgan, Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America were all equally liable as the Lehman Brothers. Henry Paulson, the Secretary of the Treasury at the time, and other officials recognized that they need to prevent further panic. They need to quell the masses. The court of public opinion was swinging their gavel, and the wrong move meant almost certain collapse. So, institutions like JP Morgan, Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America were deemed
too big to fail,
because the collapse would have catastrophic consequences for the global financial system. Unlike D.B. Cooper, these thieves were not admired, not loved, and the court of the people wanted them dead. But in truth, power saved them. Maybe that's why people pursue it to no end. In fact, power can make you the ultimate free. It can lift you above all laws, make you untouchable. July 18th, 1989, on Martha's Vineyard, a place where presidents and the ultra-rich alike go for vacation. It was about to be the hottest day on record, and the socialites began to party. Ted Kennedy. Yes, Kennedy, the younger brother of, well, John F. Kennedy. He needs to bring a woman home after his long night of partying. Her name is Mary Jo Kopechne. She helped his brother campaign before the assassination. Unfortunately, the Kennedy curse might have caught her as well. The party's on Chappaquiddick Island, a little small inlet right off of the side of Martha's Vineyard. It was a little island accessed by a single bridge. He began to cross this bridge, and the next thing that happens is a series of bad events, bad decisions, lies, and an example of how power saves you. Right around midnight, Ted Kennedy swerves off the bridge with Mary Jo, crashes into the ocean below, and the car begins to sink. He was able to escape and swim to shore. Unfortunately, Mary Jo was trapped inside. After many years of investigation, court hearings, and other testimonies, the next series of events are filled with lies, half-truths, and a lot of secrets. But this is what we think happened. He rests on the beach for 15 minutes before he returns on foot back to Lawrence Cottage, the place in which he was partying. His route took him past 4 houses, which all had telephones, and he could have called for help, but he didn't. He reaches the cottage, and he asks 2 of his friends in a private conversation to help him. Both are lawyers, and both know that this situation is bad. They make it back to the beach where he rested, and they all try to swim and rescue Mary Jo and fail. So, what do? They go to a payphone, sit there, and his friends try to convince him to call the police, but he doesn't. He has too much on the line, too much power. He's a politician. He doesn't want the court of public opinion to swing down on him. He goes back to his hotel room and collapses on the bed and sleeps. The next morning, there are multiple events in which he speaks to people and interviews people and acts completely normal. Does not mention the incident until 10 a.m. when he discovers that the car has been found by the locals and Mary Jo's body has been retrieved. He then notifies the police that he was the driver and that he crashed the car and gives this statement. Many things in that statement were a lie, were half-truths. He did not mention that he went to the payphone. He didn't mention that he sat there with his friends discussing whether he should call the police or not. Frankly, we don't know if he was drunk or not. Because he waited, they could never determine that. They couldn't give him a blood test. Maybe he was on other drugs. No one will ever know. The facts are cloudy. He did have a court hearing, though, and on July 25th, Kennedy pleaded guilty to leaving the scene of an incident and received only 2 months suspended jail sentence.
My fellow citizens, I have requested this opportunity to talk to the people of Massachusetts about the tragedy which happened last Friday evening. This morning I entered a plea of guilty to the charge of leaving the scene of an accident. Prior to my appearance in court, it would have been proper for me to comment on these matters. But tonight I am free to tell you what happened and to say what it means to me.
Despite all this, he continued his political career in re-election to Senate. If this would have happened to somebody that wasn't a Kennedy, what would be their sentence? Would they only get 2 months suspended jail sentence? The worst that came from it was that it affected Kennedy's political career, influencing his decision to not run for president in 1972 and 1976. Power essentially allowed him to get away with murder. It's likely that the fear of losing such power made him hesitate to report the crash in the first place. Maybe if he acted sooner, she might still be alive. It's sad to think that in Kennedy's final moments, when he was in a wheelchair and had difficulty speaking, he consistently said, "I've had a wonderful life." In truth, getting away with it has a lot of moral ambiguity. Sometimes you cheer for somebody, and sometimes you're horrified by it.